A black CEO boards his own airline only to have his first-class seat arrogantly snatched by a privileged white woman who sneers that he doesn't belong. What begins as public humiliation inside the lounge spirals into a storm of racism, betrayal, and systemic injustice captured on video and shared with the world. From heated confrontations and painful revelations about inherited prejudice, to a corporate war waged in boardrooms and the ultimate trial watched by millions, every chapter peels back the layers of power, silence, and resistance. In the end, poetic justice strikes. The woman who tried to erase his dignity is destroyed by her own arrogance, while the man she tried to humiliate leaves not only victorious, but with a legacy that proves no one can decide where you belong. The boarding area at JFK Airport buzzed with impatience, phones clicking, children whining, announcements echoing. Michael Carter adjusted his cufflinks, his tall frame calm amid the storm. Today's trip was routine, a flight to London for meetings that would decide millions. As he stepped toward the first-class gate, a sharp voice sliced the air. "Excuse me, I think you're in my way." A white woman with sharp heels and sharper eyes shoved past him, tossing her blonde hair. She dropped her designer purse on the counter. "Gate agent, boarding pass, please." "Victoria Hale, here, first class, seat 2A. I'll need assistance with my bag." Michael raised a brow, glancing at his own ticket. "Seat 2A, Michael. There must be some mistake." "That's my seat." Victoria's head snapped toward him, her smile thin poisonous. "Victoria, I don't think so. You must be mistaken." "Michael, no. I booked 2 weeks ago." She let out a scoff, loud enough for the nearby passengers to hear. "Victoria, sir, this is first class. Maybe check your ticket again. Coach is down that way." A few chuckles rippled from the line. The gate agent looked trapped, eyes darting between them. "Michael, I assure you, I know where my seat is. Would you please check the system?" Victoria leaned against the counter, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Victoria, check quickly. Some people don't understand how seating works." Her words hung heavier than the gate agent typed nervously. "Gate agent, Mr. Carter is correct. Seat 2A is under his name." Michael stayed silent, though his jaw clenched. "Victoria, that can't be right. I paid for 2A. Why don't you Maybe his card was declined." The crowd stirred. No one spoke up. "Michael, my ticket is valid. Perhaps you should check yours again." Victoria snatched the paper from the agent, glaring at it as if the ink betrayed her. "Victoria, this is ridiculous. Do you know who my husband is? Do you know the circles I move in?" Michael's calm was deliberate, each breath chosen. "Michael, do you know who I am?" Her laughter burst, brittle. "Victoria, no, and I don't care. I just know you don't belong in that seat." The words landed like a slap. A black man in a tailored suit, yet still out of place. The narration cut in, cool and unforgiving. Racism didn't always wear a hood. Sometimes it wore lipstick and pearls, and claimed ownership of spaces paid for in full. The gate agent shifted uncomfortably. "Gate agent Ms. Hale, the system confirms Mr. Carter has 2A. You are to be." The air crackled, her face flushed. "Victoria, then change it." "I don't want to sit next to him." Passengers pretended not to hear. Silence, complicity's closest cousin. Michael's voice stayed even. "Michael, you'll have to live with it." Victoria leaned close, whispering like venom. "Victoria, people like you should know your place." Michael straightened, towering over her, his eyes steady. "Michael, and people like you should know, times have changed." The tension broke when boarding was called. Michael stepped forward, his ticket scanned. Behind him, Victoria fumed, but followed. The battle for one seat was over. The war of dignity had only begun. The first-class cabin glowed with soft lighting, but the air carried tension sharp enough to cut glass. Michael Carter settled into seat 2A, adjusting his watch with steady hands. Beside him, Victoria Hale flung her designer bag onto 2B, huffing like she'd been robbed of a kingdom. Her voice rose deliberately, ensuring every nearby ear caught her words. "Victoria, unbelievable. I have to spend 8 hours sitting next to this situation." A few passengers lifted their heads, then quickly looked away. Silence swept through the cabin like a tide. "Michael, quietly. You could lower your voice." Victoria, louder. "Why should I? I feel unsafe already." A flight attendant approached. A practiced smile stretched across her face. "Flight attendant, is everything okay here?" Victoria didn't miss her cue. "Victoria, no, everything is not okay. This man tried to take my seat at the gate. He was aggressive. I don't feel comfortable." Michael turned his head, meeting the attendant's uneasy eyes. Michael, that's not what happened, and you know it. The gate confirmed my seat. The attendant's smile faltered, but she nodded politely. Flight attendant. I understand, sir. Miss Hale, you are in to be correct. Everything is fine. Victoria folded her arms, lips curled. Victoria, fine for now, but if he causes problems, I expect you to handle it. The attendant moved on. Relief etched into her posture. Michael leaned back, exhaling through his nose. Narration pressed in. Lies travel faster than truth when privilege carries the microphone. The whispers began almost immediately. Passenger 1 hushed. To wife, what happened at the gate? Passenger 2, I think she said he pushed her. Passenger 1, really, he doesn't look the type. Passenger 2, you never know with people. The words slithered around Michael's ears. Assumptions, silent daggers dressed as curiosity. He clenched his fists beneath the tablecloth. Victoria noticed his restraint and smirked. Leaning toward him, bought Victoria low, mocking. They'll believe me, not you. That's how the world works. Michael turned, his voice even. Michael, truth has a way of surviving lies. Victoria, not when no one speaks up for you. The narration cut sharp. Racism isn't always about what is done. Often, it's about what isn't undone. The silence of the many, the quiet approval, is its loudest weapon. The cabin lights dimmed for takeoff. Engines roared, pressing passengers into seats. Michael closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, memories did. A restaurant in Boston. Sorry, sir. Reservations are full, while empty tables gleamed behind glass. A boardroom in Chicago. A client mistaking him for a driver, handing him car keys. An airport in Texas, security asking him twice for ID, while others strolled past unchecked. Michael's throat tightened. Each moment was a scar, stitched invisible, but burning all the same dot. Victoria breaking silence. So, what do you do? Security? Bodyguard? Personal trainer? Michael opened his eyes slowly. Michael, I run businesses. Her laugh rang false. Sharp. Victoria, sure you do. Don't we all? The man across the aisle glanced over, uncomfortable, then dropped his gaze to his newspaper. Michael leaned slightly toward her, voice a measured blade. Michael, doubt is a mirror. Ms. Hale, it reflects you more than me. Her smile faltered, but she masked it with another scoff. Victoria, you're quite the talker. That won't change what people see. Michael, maybe not, but it will change what they remember. The flight attendant returned with drinks. She handed Victoria a glass of champagne with a bright smile. Flight attendant, here you are, Miss Hale. The flight cruised steady above the Atlantic, clouds glowing silver beneath the moonlight. First class shimmered with quiet luxury, crystal glasses, linen napkins, muted conversations, yet between seats 2A and 2B, tension burned louder than the engines. Victoria Hale leaned back, twirling her champagne flute like it was a crown. Victoria, nice suit, Armani knockoff. Michael Carter didn't move his gaze from the screen in front of him. Michael calmly, Armani, not a knockoff. Victoria, huh, surprising, I didn't know. Your kind, shopped there. Her smirk landed sharp, fishing for gasps. A couple across the aisle shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to hear. Michael folded his hands, his tone still even. Michael, ignorance is louder than truth. You've proven that 3 times already. Victoria, oh, so now you're a philosopher too. Michael, no, just someone tired of recycled insults. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, pressing on every passenger who overheard but stayed quiet. A businessman cleared his throat, then buried himself in his laptop. Narration edged in. Injustice doesn't need applause. It survives on silence. The cowardice of those who choose comfort over courage. The young black flight attendant reappeared, balancing a tray of meals. Her hands trembled slightly, though her smile stayed glued. That flight attendant, Ms. Hale, would you like the salmon or the fillet? Victoria, fillet, medium rare, and hurry, please. The attendant nodded, then turned to Michael. Flight attendant, and for you, sir. Michael, salmon will do, thank you. Her eyes flicked toward him, as if silently apologizing for what she'd overheard, but she said nothing, moving down the aisle with mechanical grace. Victoria leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for nearby passengers to catch. Victoria, you carry yourself well, I'll give you that, but it's all a mask, isn't it? A desperate attempt to fit in where you don't belong. Michael's jaw tightened. Michael, belonging isn't granted by you, or anyone like you. Victoria, Then prove it. What do you even do? Run some little startup? Sell sneakers online? Michael turned his head finally, eyes locking onto hers. His voice cut steady and sharp. Michael, I run companies bigger than you can imagine, but I don't need to prove anything to you. Her laugh burst, brittle as glass. Victoria. Sure. Next you'll tell me you're the president. Across the aisle, a middle-aged man with a wedding ring shifted, clearly listening. But when Victoria's eyes darted toward him, he quickly dropped his gaze. Narration pressed cold. Silence wasn't neutral. Silence was a choice. And tonight, every passenger chose comfort over justice. Dinner arrived. The attendant set plates down carefully, avoiding eye contact. Victoria cut into her fillet, chewing with deliberate leisure. Victoria, you know what your problem is. You think dressing up makes you equal. It doesn't. Everyone here knows it. They're just too polite to say it. Michael set his fork down gently, turning toward her. Michael, you mistake politeness for agreement, but one day, the silence you rely on will turn against you. Victoria, not today. Michael, no, not today. But soon, her smirk faltered, though only for a moment. She quickly recovered, raising her glass. Victoria, to delusions. Michael raised his water in return. Michael, to truth. They clinked glasses, but the sound wasn't a toast. It was a collision. Later, as the cabin lights dimmed, Victoria struck again. Victoria, you know, I could complain right now and say you threatened me. They'd believe me. Imagine being dragged off a plane in front of all these people. Michael's stare didn't waver. Michael, imagine the shame of being exposed for what you really are. Victoria, exposed. I'm untouchable. Michael, everyone who says that eventually falls. Her laugh was softer now, uncertain. She glanced around, searching for allies. Most passengers kept their eyes fixed on books or screens, avoiding her like she was a storm cloud. Narration pierced the silence. When privilege falters, it seeks shelter in others' cowardice. But cowardice, the cabin dimmed further, passengers lulled into drowsy silence as the jet cut across the Atlantic night. The hum of the engines was steady, but beneath it pulsed a quieter storm. Michael Carter had almost managed to lose himself in a spreadsheet glowing faintly on his laptop when sudden turbulence jolted the plane. Glasses rattled, silverware clinked, and startled gasps rose around first class. An elderly man in seat 1C dropped his cane as he tried to steady himself. Instinctively, Michael unbuckled his belt, bent forward, and retrieved it. Michael, gently, here you are, sir. Hold on to the armrest until it passes. Elderly passenger. Thank you, son. Much obliged. But before relief could settle, Victoria Hale's voice cut through like a knife. Victoria, did you see that? He lunged at him. Heads snapped toward them. The old man blinked in confusion. Elderly passenger lunged. No, he was helping Victoria, interrupting. He grabbed at him. I don't feel safe. Her voice was sharp, pitched high enough for the attendants to hear. One hurried over, her face tight with unease. Flight attendant. Sir, is everything all right here? Victoria pointing at Michael. No, it's not. He keeps making me uncomfortable. Now, he's harassing other passengers. Michael froze, incredulity tightening his chest. Michael, that's not what happened. I picked up his cane. The elderly man nodded quickly. Elderly passenger. He's right, he helped me. But Victoria cut in again, relentless. Victoria, of course you'd say that. You don't want to cause trouble. But I saw it. The attendant's eyes darted between them, torn. Her silence dragged like chains. Michael inhaled, voice low but steady. Michael, this is slander, and you know it. Victoria. Or maybe it's the truth no one else will admit. The narration slid in, bitter. Racism didn't need proof. It only needed a voice loud enough, white enough, to make doubt believable. The attendant pulled in a breath. Her voice clipped. Flight attendant. Sir, I need you to return to your seat immediately. Any more disruptions and I'll have to file a report. Michael's stomach sank. A report. The weight of those words was heavier than steel. He had seen how easily aggressive could turn into arrested. Michael measured. Disruption. Helping an elderly man is a disruption. Flight attendant lowering her voice. Please, sir, just sit down. Don't make this worse. Michael stared at her, at the plea in her eyes, at the cowardice behind it. He returned to his seat, but the betrayal burned hotter than Victoria's venom. Victoria leaned back with a satisfied sigh, loud enough for the rows ahead to hear. Victoria, see, even the crew knows what kind of man you are. Michael's hands curled into fists against his thighs. He could feel every eye in the cabin, some curious, some suspicious, most indifferent. Silence, again, complicit, suffocating. Narration pressed cold. The worst wounds were not carved by enemies, but by the quiet knives of those two afraid to stand for truth. The young black flight attendant lingered nearby, pretending to check overhead compartments. Her lips trembled as if words wanted to escape, but fear bound them shut. When her eyes caught Michael's, sorrow flickered back Michael's soft, to her, "Don't apologize for silence, just remember it." Her eyes widened, but she moved on, her tray clattering slightly in her shaking hands. Victoria wasn't finished. "Victoria, you sit there all smug, pretending to be calm. That's the most dangerous kind, you know. Smiling while plotting. Michael, plotting. The only plot here is yours. Victoria, call it what you want. People believe women like me, not men like you." Her words rang louder than the turbulence. Passengers exchanged uneasy looks. No one spoke. The lounge had grown eerily quiet, though the muffled hum of boarding announcements still bled through the walls. Daniel sat upright, his eyes fixed on Catherine, who now avoided his gaze like a child caught stealing. "Why are you so quiet now?" Daniel's voice was calm, but every syllable pressed against her pride. "A moment ago, you had all the authority in the world. Now you shrink." Catherine's lips trembled. "You don't understand. Make me understand," Daniel said firmly. "Or are you only bold when no one knows your truth?" Dialogue takes center stage. Catherine's hands tightened around her designer purse. "My father, he worked with your company decades ago. He wanted to rise higher, but he claimed the system was against him." Daniel leaned forward. "And that's my fault, Hal. He used to say, people like them own the table. People like us are lucky if we get scraps." Her voice quivered as if reciting an inherited sermon. "I grew up hearing it. I believed it." Daniel's jaw hardened. "So you turned that poison into your identity. You thought humiliating others would make you whole. You wouldn't understand." Catherine snapped, the sharpness of her voice breaking through her false composure. "You grew up privileged, a CEO, owning things. I had to claw my way through a man's world, and every door slammed on me." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Do you really think my skin didn't slam doors shut before I could even touch the handle?" His voice cracked slightly, not with weakness, but with a lifetime's memory. "I bled for every inch of respect I own, and you still assume privilege because it soothes your failures." Narration and tension, the room seemed to fold inward. The truth, tearing at old illusions. The witnesses, who once whispered in judgment, now sat frozen, realizing this was no petty argument but a mirror of centuries-old wounds. Catherine's breath hitched. "You don't get it. My father died bitter. He told me to never let someone like you step over me. That's why I acted the way I did." Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. "Hatred was his inheritance to you, and you accepted it like gold. Climactic exchange. You don't know what it's like to lose everything." Catherine shouted, her voice raw. "I've been overlooked, ignored, dismissed. I wanted one victory, and so you tried to snatch mine." Daniel's tone was quiet, but cut sharper than a blade. "Don't you see? You are your father's bitterness, dressed in silk. But bitterness never wins, it only devours." Catherine's face crumpled, tears pricking her eyes, though she fought them back. One of the flight attendants, unable to stay silent, finally whispered, "He's right." The words carried through the room like a gavel's strike. Daniel's reflection. Daniel stood slowly, his presence filling the lounge. "You thought you could reduce me to nothing, Catherine. You thought you'd sit in my place and watch me burn in humiliation. But today, you've revealed yourself, not me, and everyone here has seen it." Silence pressed heavy against the walls. Catherine shivered, her shoulders collapsing inward. Daniel added, voice steady but weighted with sorrow, "My father taught me something different from yours. He said, build something that no one can take away, even if they hate you for it. That's why I own this airline, not for power, but so no one could ever make me small again." Closing narration. For the first time, Catherine had no weapon, no status, no voice, no mask. The power she borrowed from prejudice dissolved, leaving her as exposed as a child. And Daniel, he didn't gloat, he didn't smirk, he only carried the dignity of someone who had suffered long enough to know that real victories were quiet, steady, and undeniable. But Catherine's story wasn't over yet. The world outside this lounge was watching, and so was justice. The incident in the lounge did not stay contained. By the time Daniel's plane touched down in New York, The confrontation had already become a storm. Passengers had whispered the story into their phones. Some had recorded fragments, and an anonymous upload was already circulating online. A white woman humiliates a black man in first class until he reveals he owns the airline. The video spread like wildfire. The hashtags were sharp, accusatory, and relentless. Hashtag airline justice. Hashtag CEO vs. racism. Hashtag seat snatcher. Within hours, the name Catherine Whitmore began trending. Dialogue at headquarters. Daniel sat in his Manhattan office, staring at the skyline. His assistant Maya rushed in with a tablet. "Sir, the board's been calling non-stop," she said, her voice quick. "The press wants a statement. Investors are nervous. And Catherine's lawyers just sent a letter threatening defamation. If you don't retract." Daniel raised a hand. "Defamation?" He almost laughed. "She humiliated herself in front of witnesses." Maya pressed her lips together. "Her family is powerful. The Whitmores own a consulting firm that's worked with our competitors. They won't go quietly." Daniel leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "Then let them roar. Noise doesn't scare me. Injustice does." Catherine's side across town. Catherine sat in a sleek office surrounded by lawyers. Her face was pale, her hands restless. "Damage control," one attorney said sharply. "We spin this. We make you the victim." "But I'm the one who—" Catherine's voice faltered. "You did nothing wrong," another lawyer cut in. "That's our story. You were confused, overwhelmed, a misunderstanding." He escalated it. Catherine swallowed. "And people will believe that." The lawyer smirked. "People always believe the right kind of victim." Narration. The war wasn't just personal anymore. It had evolved into a corporate battlefield where image, narrative, and influence were weapons sharper than knives. Daniel stood on one side, armed with truth and dignity. Catherine clung to manipulation, desperate to survive the fallout. Boardroom showdown. The next morning, Daniel entered the airline's boardroom. 12 directors sat around the polished mahogany table, their faces tense. One of them, Mr. Caldwell, spoke first. "Daniel, this video is global. While the majority praises your composure, some media outlets are questioning if you overplayed the race card." Daniel's eyes flicked across the table. "So my dignity is a card now." The room went silent. Caldwell shifted. "We're only saying investors hate controversy. Catherine's family is pressuring us. They're hinting at lawsuits, boycotts, even smear campaigns." Daniel's tone turned cold. "I didn't create this scandal. She did. She chose arrogance over humanity. And if the board thinks I should apologize for her hatred, then perhaps you've forgotten why I built this company." Another director cleared her throat. "Daniel, we stand with you, but you should know this could trigger a corporate war, and Catherine's side is ruthless." Daniel nodded. "Then we prepare. I've fought worse wars than this." Catherine's counterattacker that evening. A glossy interview aired on a major news channel. Catherine, dressed in white, with perfectly staged tears, looked directly into the camera. "I was overwhelmed," she said softly. "I didn't even know he was the CEO. I was just scared. I thought I was being treated unfairly." Her voice broke delicately. "Now I'm being painted as a monster. My family is receiving threats. My reputation is ruined." The anchor leaned in sympathetically. "So you're saying the narrative is exaggerated?" "Yes," Catherine whispered. "I respect everyone. I just want peace." The performance was flawless. Social media fractured. Some applauded her vulnerability, while others called it crocodile tears. The battlefield grew bloodier. Maya and Daniel back in the office. Maya slammed her phone onto the desk. "She's weaponizing sympathy, and some people are falling for it." Daniel stayed calm. "Truth always walks slower than lies, but it arrives." Maya's eyes softened. "You really think justice will win this time?" Daniel met her gaze. "I don't think—" "I know, because this isn't just about myths, about every person who's been silenced, dismissed, erased." Catherine opened a door she can't close. Narration. The war lines had been drawn. On one side, truth, dignity, and a movement swelling with. The courthouse was swarmed with cameras. Reporters jostled against the barricades. Microphones thrust forward like weapons. Headlines screamed across every screen. "Airline CEO versus socialite. Racism scandal goes to court." Inside, the air carried the heavy musk of tension. Catherine sat at the plaintiff's table, flawless makeup masking the fear etched into her eyes. Across from her, Daniel sat tall and still, his composure unshaken. The world had turned their feud into a spectacle, but to Daniel, it was never theater, it was survival. Opening statements. Catherine's lawyer, a silver-haired man with a booming voice, stood first. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, he began. This is a case about misunderstanding. My client, a respected woman of society, was publicly humiliated by Mr. Daniel Carter. He exploited her confusion, turned it into a global circus, and destroyed her reputation. She has received threats, harassment, and emotional trauma all because he sought to score points in a so-called war against racism. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Then Daniel's lawyer, a younger black woman named Attorney Rhodes, rose. Her voice was sharp, precise, cutting. This case is not about misunderstanding, she said. It is about arrogance. It is about privilege weaponized to humiliate. Catherine Whitmore assumed she was entitled to take what did not belong to her, and when the truth emerged, she tried to rewrite the story. But the cameras do not lie. The witnesses do not lie. And history does not lie. This case is not Daniel Carter against Catherine Whitmore. It is truth against deception. The courtroom hushed, every word hanging like smoke. Witness testimonies. The first witness, a flight attendant, took the stand. She wrung her hands nervously, but her voice carried steady. I saw Catherine take the seat, she testified. She ignored Mr. Carter. She said he didn't belong there. Her words were clear. I was too scared to intervene. Catherine's lawyer pounced. So you admit you did nothing. Could you be misremembering? The attendant's eyes hardened. No. I remember every word, because it wasn't the first time I'd heard something like it, and I'll never forget it again. Next came a passenger. He adjusted his glasses, his tone measured. She said, and I quote, "People like you should know your place. That's not misunderstanding, that's discrimination." The jury's faces stiffened. Catherine shifted uncomfortably, her mask of composure cracking. Catherine takes the stand finally. Catherine herself was called. She walked with forced grace, her heels clicking against the floor like a drumbeat of defiance. Her lawyer guided her gently. Catherine, tell us how you felt that day. She blinked, tears brimming. I was overwhelmed. The airport was chaos. I thought he was trying to take my seat. I panicked. I never meant to offend anyone, and when he revealed who he was, I was shocked. But I'm not racist. Her voice trembled. I just made a mistake. The jury leaned in, some eyes softening. Then Attorney Rhodes rose. Her steps were slow, deliberate. Ms. Whitmore, she began, her voice cool. Do you recall saying, people like you should know your place? Catherine's face paled. I don't remember. Convenient, Rhodes said flatly. But the passengers remember. The attendants remember. The camera remembers. Shall we play the recording? A screen flickered to life, replaying Catherine's words in brutal clarity. Her voice dripped with disdain. The courtroom stiffened at the sound. Rhodes turned back to her. Still a mistake. Catherine stammered. I was under stress. Stress reveals character. Rhodes cut in. And yours revealed contempt. Daniel speaks at last. Daniel was called. He stood tall, his presence commanding silence. Mr. Carter, Rhodes asked softly, why did you not retaliate in that moment? Daniel's gaze swept across the courtroom. Because I've lived this my whole life. If I shouted, I'd be the angry black man. If I resisted, I'd be the threat. So I stood still. I let her words expose themselves, and I reminded everyone that my worth doesn't come from a seat. It comes from what I've built, despite people like her. The jury's eyes glistened. Even the judge leaned slightly forward. Daniel's voice grew firmer. This isn't about a chair. It's about centuries of chairs denied, tables we were barred from, rooms we were excluded from. Catherine thought she could reduce me in public, but I am not reduced, and I will not allow silence to protect her arrogance. Narration. The courtroom was no longer just a legal chamber. It was a stage where history replayed itself in miniature. Catherine fought to preserve her illusion, but the weight of truth pressed heavier with every passing testimony. Daniel wasn't mere. The courthouse was packed to the brim the next morning. Protesters filled the streets, their chants echoing through the marble halls. Inside, the jury sat tense, the air heavy with the weight of decision. Judge Harrison entered, his gavel striking once. We will now hear closing arguments before the jury deliberates. Closing arguments. Catherine's lawyer rose, straightening his tie. Ladies and gentlemen, my client made a mistake, human mistake. She has suffered enough. She has been humiliated, vilified, and targeted. This case is not about racism. It is about misunderstanding turned into a witch hunt. His voice carried like a plea. Show mercy. Don't destroy a woman's life over a single bad moment. The jury listened, unmoved. Then Attorney Rhodes stood, her eyes fierce. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about choice. Catherine Whitmore chose entitlement. She chose arrogance. And when her prejudice was exposed, she chose lies. She is not the victim. Here she is the architect of her own downfall. If you let this go unpunished, you tell every arrogant voice in this country that they can spit on dignity and walk away free. She leaned closer, her words sharp as glass. Justice is not mercy for the privileged. Justice is truth for the silenced. Today, you decide whether arrogance wins or dignity does. Narration. The jury disappeared into deliberation. Minutes became hours. Hours stretched into a storm of anticipation. Cameras outside broadcast every ripple of speculation. Daniel sat silently, his hands clasped. Catherine fidgeted, her mask crumbling with each passing moment. Finally, the jury filed back. The foreman stood, paper trembling slightly in his grip. The verdict: the jury find that Catherine Whitmore's actions constituted public defamation, discrimination, and intentional harm. We rule in favor of Daniel Carter. Gasps filled the courtroom. Catherine's face drained of all color. Her lawyer's jaw slackened. The judge's gavel struck again. Catherine Whitmore is ordered to pay damages in the amount of $10 million. Furthermore, she is barred from serving in any public leadership role tied to the airline industry due to misconduct. The words fell like thunder. Dialogue. Catherine's collapse. Catherine stumbled to her feet. This isn't fair. You're ruining me. He's the one with all the power, and I'm the one punished. Daniel rose slowly, his voice calm but unyielding. No, Catherine, you punished yourself the moment you believed I didn't belong. This is not my revenge. This is consequence. Tears streaked Catherine's face, smearing her mascara. My family will disown me. Everything I worked for gone. Daniel's eyes softened for a moment, then maybe now you'll understand. Dignity isn't stolen, it's earned, and yours was built on arrogance. Narration. Justice outside. When Daniel stepped outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Chants surged, and strangers shouted his name. Daniel, Daniel. Reporters swarmed, but Daniel raised a hand. This was never about me alone, he said firmly. This was about every person who has ever been told they don't belong. Today proves no seat, no title, no table is off limits when truth is on your side. The cheers shook the street. Catherine's silence inside. Catherine sat abandoned. Her phone buzzed with endless missed calls, but no one came for her. Not her lawyers, not her allies, not even her family. The empire she believed untouchable had evaporated in hours. The silence around her was louder than the verdict itself. Closing exchange. As Daniel's car pulled away, Maya leaned toward him. You did it. Daniel shook his head gently. No, we did it. Truth did it. Catherine only thought she had power, but power without justice is just noise, and noise always fades. He looked out the window at the chanting crowd, his reflection flickering in the glass. Let this be the last time someone thinks dignity is theirs to snatch. Final narration. And so, the war ended, not with fists, not with fury, but with the quiet weight of justice. Catherine's arrogance had collapsed under the weight of truth, while Daniel's dignity rose higher than ever before. It was poetic justice. The thief of seats left standing with nothing, while the man denied his place walked out owning not only the airline but the story. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered across headlines, social feeds, and whispered conversations in offices and airports around the world. Daniel Carter returned to his daily life, but he was no longer just a CEO. He was a symbol. For many, he became living proof that dignity could endure and justice could prevail, even against the arrogance of power. Scene. Daniel and Maya. One evening, Daniel sat in his office as the sun dipped behind the Manhattan skyline, its golden glow painting the glass walls. Maya entered quietly, carrying a stack of newspapers. They're calling you the man who owned the seat, she said with a half-dash smile. Daniel chuckled softly. I didn't want to own a seat. I just wanted respect. You got more than that, Maya replied. She set the papers down. Headlines, blaring phrases like CEO topples racist scandal, and a new chapter for equality in corporate America. Daniel's gaze softened. Respect isn't mine alone to keep. It's something I owe forward. Flashback. Reflection. He thought back to his father's words, the lessons that shaped him. Build something no one can take away. His father hadn't meant money, or planes, or corporations. He had meant dignity, integrity, the kind of wealth no thief could snatch, no prejudice could erase. And now, Daniel understood fully. Catherine's fat. Meanwhile, Catherine vanished from the public eye. The consulting firm her family ran severed ties with her. Invitations to galas, boardrooms, and circles of influence evaporated. She lived in silence, her name no longer opening doors but slamming them shut. For the first time, she was forced to confront the inheritance. She had clung to an inheritance of bitterness, arrogance, and disdain. Her downfall became a quiet warning whispered across social corridors. Privilege without humility was a curse. Dialogue with the public. Weeks later, Daniel appeared at a community forum hosted at one of his airline's hubs. A young man stood nervously to ask a question. "Mr. Cotter, what gave you the strength to stay calm when someone tried to erase you like that?" Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady, because anger, though justified, would have given her what she wanted. Silence would have kept her powerful. But truth has a weight that neither arrogance nor privilege can carry. And when you speak truth, you're never standing alone. The audience erupted into applause. Narration. The story spread further, reshaping more than just one company's image. Other CEOs cited Daniel's example in boardrooms. Universities discussed the trial in classes on ethics and law, and countless people who had felt voiceless found in his story a mirror of their own struggles. Daniel never asked for the spotlight, but he carried it with humility, knowing that sometimes legacy chooses us, whether we want it or not. Final scene. Airport. Months later, Daniel walked through an airport quietly, dressed simply, unnoticed by most. At a gate nearby, he saw a young black boy staring at a first-class lounge door with wide, hesitant eyes. The boy's mother nudged him. "Go on, sweetheart. You belong there." But the boy whispered, "What if they don't let me?" Daniel stepped closer, smiling warmly. "They will, and if they don't, you remind them no one decides where you belong but you." The boy's eyes lit up as if hearing a secret of the universe. His mother mouthed a silent thank you as Daniel walked on. Closing narration. The world had tried to strip Daniel Cotter of his dignity, but instead, it crowned him with something greater, legacy, and Catherine. Her name faded into silence, a reminder of what happens when arrogance collides with truth. In the end, justice hadn't come through rage or revenge, it had come through resilience, exposure, and patience, the kind of justice that doesn't just punish, but teaches. The seat Catherine tried to steal became more than leather and luxury. It became a symbol of belonging, of equality, of the simple truth that no voice, no color, no human being should ever be told, "You don't belong here." Daniel Cotter owned more than an airline now. He owned the story,